Well, hey, Angel fans, and welcome back to Halo Territory. I'm Mike DiGiovanna, former LA Times baseball writer, joined by Mike Trumbo, my regular co host and former Angel slugger. And if you're watching us on YouTube, you can see we have a very special guest today, Jim Palmer, the Hall of Fame pitcher, the three-time Cy Young Award winner, the three-time World Series champion, and broadcast analyst for the Baltimore Orioles. Jim, really appreciate you joining us today. How you doing?
Oh, I'm good, thanks.
All
Nice
right.
to be with you.
All right. Really appreciate it. So, we thought in the wake of the Angels sell off at the trade deadline, it would be interesting to examine the challenges for teams that are quote unquote playing out the string. How guys approach the final 2 months of a season in which they have nothing to play for. Now, Jim Palmer has never experienced that as a player. This is hard. I looked it up. I couldn't believe this, Jim. The Orioles had one losing season in your 22 years in Baltimore. But as an Orioles TV analyst, there's no better example than 2018. The Orioles were 32 and 75 and 42 games back on July 31st, and they traded away a big chunk of the MLB roster, including Manny Machado, Zach Britton, Kevin Gossman, Jonathan Shoup, and others in a matter of days. Now, Jim, as a broadcaster and a franchise icon, what was that period like inside the organization and especially for the fan base?
Well, obviously the fan base wasn't happy. I mean, this was the team, uh, that, well, 2014, and again, Mark wasn't there. I think Mark arrived in, 2016 when he led the American League in home runs with 47. And then the club, so what? They were 96 and 66 in 2014, 15, 81 and 81, 16, 89 and 73, Mark's first year there. And then progressively, if you look, I mean, 75 and 87, and then they would end up, 47 and 115.
Yeah,
So
115 losses.
I don't think he really wanted to sign in Baltimore, even though, years earlier, Dan Duquette was the general manager. He said, "Do you think Manny would sign an extension?" I go, "Well, I'll go ask him." So now this is early on. This is not 2018. This is like, he had some knee problems. He had both ligaments in his right and left knee fixed by, I think, Alatrash. And I went down to the cage. I said, "Hey, would you sign an extension?" He said, "Of course." But again, when you go into your free agent year, things change and guys are making more money and whatever. So this is a club that got progressively worse. I mean, Mark was
Yeah.
there. I did 4 and 32 finishes with the Orioles. I did 14 straight losing years, from
Wow.
like 1989 all the way till when Buck Showalter came, I think, and came, 2011, had their first winning year in 2012. So obviously, when you're as good as the Orioles were, now as they were in 90, in 2000,
95. In
yeah,
97, they were in the playoffs.
yeah,
Yeah.
right, exactly. Well, I mean, go way back. They had an all-star
Yeah.
team. So again, the fan expected them to be better than they were, but Dan Duquette was saying, "Okay, we're not winning. I mean, like I said, we ended up 47 and 115. Let's get the best deals we can." I'm not really sure they did because they probably waited a year longer to trade Manny Machado than they should have.
Yeah.
That's always a really tough one. And Manny, I think one of the most understood players in the game. He was an excellent teammate, and I just wanted to get that part in there. This is the first time the Angels have really leaned into. People don't like to use the R word, but you get walks like a duck. You got to call it a duck. So, what is it? I'm wondering if you could help the fans. What does a rebuild feel like for the players, for the broadcasters, for people that are day to day involved, having to kind of put their best effort forward, knowing the wins aren't going to pile up.
Well, obviously for the fans, I think it gives them hope. I mean, the Orioles are a perfect example. Mike Elias comes after the 47 and 115, one-loss record in 2018. So he comes in 2019, and he announces, "Hey, we're going to do a rebuild." And how are we going to do that? We're not going to be as bad as 47 and 115, but we're going to kind of do what they did down in Houston, where you're going to hopefully you'll play poorly, you get the draft high. Adley Rutschman, who just got traded up to Boston, was the first draft choice 2019. I had a good friend who was one of the Orioles scouts. He begged them, take Bobby. Not that Adley's not going to be a good player, but Bobby Witt Jr. is 3 years younger.
Mm.
Player going to play 155 to 160 games a year based on a catcher, maybe catching 100 to 125, and probably more signable. And of course, we know how good Witt is, but they chose Adley. And you know, when Adley came in 2022, that was kind of, at least, and I think in the fans' minds and really the Orioles, that this team was going to get better. And he really played well in 22, 23, all the way up to the All-Star break in 24. I don't know if he had injuries, but all of a sudden he struggled. Last year he hit 133 with runners in scoring position. The league average is about 251. So again, there was something going on. This year he's having a pretty good year, and the word is, I don't know, you know, that he wasn't going to sign an extension. The writer called me and he said, "Do you know for a fact?" I said, "No." I said, "Why don't you ask the GM, Mike Elias?" And he wouldn't answer, because I think if he did, it would set a precedent. Because Gunnar Henderson, 2 years from now, when he has another year on his contract before he becomes a free agent, you're going to go, well, he's going to trade him. So what if you're an Oriole fan, or, and you know, again, they trade Adley Rutschman, and they're only, it's a false god as far as I'm concerned when you're not playing well, but they're only 2.5 games out of the wild card. So they're still in the race, even though to do that, I think you got to play, and they're 11 and what, I think they're 15 or 16 and 10 in their last 26 games. So they're playing better. But again, the Red Sox, what, 20, 23 and 5 or some ridiculous number. And, you know, we helped them. We made 4 errors first night in Boston. They should have ended the win streak, but we didn't. So, yeah, I mean, Mark, you know as well as I, you were there in 2018. It's kind of depressing in one sense, but if you're a player and you get replaced, just think of the opportunity last night against the Angels. Kate Povich pitched against one of my favorite young pitchers, you know, in Grayson Rodriguez, except obviously we know you haven't been able to stay healthy. So it gives all the young players opportunities. So they probably look at it a little more positively. But again, if you're broadcasting, you're still, I mean, you're preparing for the game. You're hoping they win, because why are people watching TV or Oriole TV? They want the team to win.
Now, Mark, the Orioles went 15 and 40 in August and September of 2018. Do you remember what Camden Yard? I mean, Camden Yards is one of my favorite places to watch baseball all throughout the 90s. Place was just rocking, just a great atmosphere, playoff atmosphere every night. What do you recall it being like those last 2 months of 2018?
The on-field play was at fault. I mean, the fans continued to support. Maybe the stands weren't quite as crowded as they would be for a team playing significantly better. But as a player, you do the best you can, and I took a lot of pride in giving my best effort, despite the fact the team wasn't doing well. It looks even worse if you just are pouting, quitting. It's bad enough already. Don't make it worse. And for a lot of, in my situation, I was an older player, had signed a contract and wanted to honor that contract. And I felt like because of that, there was nothing else to do but give my best effort. If we happen to rack up, another loss that night, you just kind of have to eat it. Unfortunately, what happens on teams that are really bad, losing gets too familiar and it doesn't sting. And when it doesn't sting, I think that's a big deal. Now, in Jim's case, I don't think you played on too many teams that were under 500, maybe one. It was astounding when I looked at the Orioles records while you were a player there.
Yeah, well, I mean, I lucked out because I was a couple of years before the draft, and Houston offered me more money. I ended up signing with the Orioles that night. 10 teams called the next day, but I think I made the right decision. 6 World Series, we won 3 of them. I mean, even the ones we lost, other than the Mets series, where it's just bad experience because umpire breaks. They were obviously the amazing Mets, so they were a good team. But the two series in 71 and 79 against the Pirates, they were great. 7-game World Series. You lose 2-1. You lose, I think, 5-1 in the 79 World Series on the final day. So, I was really lucky. And then, how do you win as many games as I did? You play on good teams, which is why I never left. I mean, I knew that all I had to do is try to figure out how to stay healthy, be able to go out there 38, 39, 40 times a year. And I was going to win a lot of games because we did a lot of things, right. And as to Mark's point, teams that don't, they beat themselves. They lose the 1-run games. They don't expect to win. So you do play for yourself. The late Mike Flanagan used to always say when we would trade for a guy that came from a losing team, he said you just can see he does not play for the name on the front of the uniform. They're used to playing for the team that's their name on the back of the uniform, which for themselves, and that's kind of what losing teams. It kind of fosters that in a sense, and that's not the way you play the game.
All right, we're going to take a quick break for a word from our sponsors, and when we get back, we're going to talk a little more about this Adley Rutschman deal for the Orioles.
This is that time of year, AJ. It is baseball's time to shine. And it is SeatGeek's time to shine with MLB tickets and finding the best pricing, seating, and games that are even sold out available on SeatGeek.
Absolutely. If you want to go to the biggest matchups coming up, we have Yankees Cubs coming up. There's Yankees Red Sox. It means stuff again. There's some big moments that are coming up here, as the pennant chases really heat up. Go to SeatGeek and find those green tickets with the best deals and get yourself out to an MLB game.
Yeah, and they're straightforward with you. They will actually put a red dot next to a ticket that they don't feel is your best look. Green dot means very good. Code for you. It's Territory 10. 10% off your next set of MLB tickets at SeatGeek. That's 10% off MLB tickets when you use the promo code Territory10. Make sure you click the link in the description to download the app and have the code automatically added to your account so you can use it later.
And welcome back to Halo Territory with Mark Trumbo, Mike DiGiovanna, and Jim Palmer, our special guest, the former Hall of Famer. I believe Mark has the next question.
Okay, where do the Orioles go? What are they doing? They trade Adley. I understand if he wasn't interested in signing a contract extension, then logically, I think that does make sense. But they've already done one rebuild, very painful. It took a while, but it did pay off. Not in the form of a World Series, but they did have a lot of success under Brandon Hyde. Some good seasons, and they reshuffled. There's new instructors every year. You and I have talked about some of this, but the Angels are doing it for the first time, and I guess you want to get it right and try and emulate teams that have sustained success, Brewers, Rays, teams like that, unless you're a big spender. But what do you see from the Orioles now? Is this just a reshuffling, restocking? What's going on?
That's a good question. When Mike Elias came in 2019, he said we're going to create an elite pipeline. Now, again, when you're drafting number one, you hope that, they take Adley over Bobby Witt Jr. They do get Gunnar Henderson, who was, I think, the 40th pick that year. So pretty talented player, even though this year he's been struggling. And then they don't draft pitchers. That's why I think the Adley Rutschman trade, in getting Taylor Ward, who was with the Angels, hit 36 home runs, career high. Normally years, 23, 26, somewhere in that range when he's healthy. But he only hit 7, 1 at Camden Yards. Now they did change left field. It used to be 364. Now it went to 398. Now it's back in a little bit. It's kind of weird, but I think they thought they had a team that could compete. But again, one of their best young players is Jordan Westburg. And when you take him out of the lineup, the Orioles don't beat lefties. They're going to face Reed Detmers tonight, and I'm going, okay, not only is he a good pitcher, he's left-handed. What did Pete Rose say? If you're breathing and you're left-handed, you got a chance to play in the big league. So, again, we are in a rebuild of sense. But a lot of times when, like when they traded Mancini and Lopez in 2022, after only winning 50-some games a year before, Mike Elias said, well, liftoff. Well, then you trade two of your better players. But in 23, they won 101 games. And, after going from 57 to 83, then 101, then 91. So, again, this is a team that you think on paper, they'd signed Pete Alonso, they traded for Shane Baz, who has pitched a lot better than his record because they don't score any runs for him. They've had some injuries. Helsley, they got him as a closer. He's been off and on the IL. Trevor Rogers last year had the most incredible 17-game streak that I've ever seen. And I've been in baseball over 60 years.
Wow.
Had a 131 ERA with 17 starts. You go on a run. I mean, I went on a run once where I had 33 in the third scoreless innings, and you thinking you're not going to get many runs, but to do that, he gave up 6 runs in his last start up in New York. Is he, for 18 starts, 181, and he started out poorly. Now he's pitching as well as anybody, but they haven't extended him. So I don't know what they're going to do. They have the highest payroll, I think, in the history of the Orioles, and they're 3 games under 500. So again, is this a rebuild? I don't think so. But once again, the Adley Rutschman trade, you don't think it's going to happen till it does. One of the writers called me last night and they said, well, do you know that he turned down an extension? And I said, no. I said, why don't you ask the GM? And he said, well, I did, and wouldn't answer it. Because if you did, that means when Gunnar Henderson, 2 years from now, and he's Scott Boras, who's one of the best agents in baseball, that automatically, if he doesn't sign an extension, he's going to be traded in the middle of the season. So I don't think you want to verbally set that precedent. So it'll be very interesting what they do. But they needed pitching. Apparently, they got from the Red Sox 2 really good prospects. But Mark knows as well as I do, Cal Ripken Sr. used to always say there's suspects and there's prospects.
Oh, yeah.
And the prospects get a chance to get to the big leagues probably a little bit sooner, whether you got a lot of money to sign or, you throw 98 or whatever. But the minute you get to the big leagues, you're a suspect again until you prove that you can play the game at a high level.
Yeah. Hey, Ken
100%.
Rosenthal on the Foul Territory Network had some interesting things to say about this Rutschman deal. Let's take a listen.
The Rutschman trade, to me, was the defining trade of this deadline. It was fascinating. Adley Rutschman going to the Boston Red Sox for a number of prospects. And it kind of, as I wrote, demonstrated 2 teams at opposite extremes. The Orioles, a team that was supposedly going to be a competitive, contending type club by now. They talked about liftoff. Their president of baseball operations, Mike Elias, did in 2022. They didn't lift off. They haven't crashed, but they've kind of gone nowhere. And now they've traded the guy they picked number 1 over Bobby Witt Jr. in 2019. The guy that was really the signature piece of their rebuild. The guy who they talked about keeping forever and yet never signed to a long-term extension. That guy is, of course, Rutschman. And the reason that this trade for the Orioles was so deflating to so many of their fans is that it kind of acknowledges that the whole thing hasn't gone according to plan. Fans are asked all the time, trust the process, stay with us. The Orioles fans did through some really hard years. They tanked, they got some big picks, and now they are not starting over, but certainly retooling in a way that is going to require more patience. Now, they've got pieces in place going forward. They'll be okay. They've got Alonso and they've got Basayo signed long-term. They've got pieces in the rotation. Kyle Bradish, of course, Shane Baz, long-term. They can extend a qualifying offer to Trevor Rogers. But fans are right to ask, hey, man, what's going on here? Why is...
Now, Jim, as Mark said, the Angels are finally committed to a rebuild. It's really the first time since I can ever remember. But are the Orioles, with what's going on now, something of a cautionary tale for the Angels, especially their fans who might be thinking this is a smooth, linear process?
Well, it worked for the Orioles. It just they couldn't sustain it, and so they win 101, and then they win 91. They go to the playoffs 2 years in a row. They get swept by the Rangers, who win the World Series in 2023. They had a good club, but they had an inexperienced club, and Bradish got beat in game 1. Really good game. I think he gave up 3 runs, and the Orioles didn't score. And then Grayson Rodriguez, Dean Kramer, who's Jewish, right after what happened in 2007, and he's going to go start a playoff game. A lot of things on his mind, maybe other than baseball, what happened in Israel or in Gaza. So, and then the next year they play Kansas City, and they lose 3-2, and then they lose 2-1. So they're a good team, but they're not a great team. And then, all of a sudden, next year they started out 15-28, and I'm on the elevator in Anaheim, and the club's not playing well. It's game 3 of the Orioles playing in Anaheim, and Mike Elias, the GM, says, "Do you ever see a team go from all the way up here to the bottom?" And I said, "Not one with good pitching." And, you went back to your point. I never played on a team that didn't have good pitching. So you're in games. Your players think you're in games. I don't know, Mark. I mean, I'm not going to speak for you, but because you were a terrific hitter. But if you don't think you have to get 7 or 8 runs a game, that you can get 3 or 4, or I can get a big hit, or I'm going to be involved versus not going to be a slugfest every night, I think you got to think you have a better chance of winning games. And all the good clubs I played on had excellent pitching.
That's a perfect segue. I was going to ask you. I personally like short starts, 4 1/3, 100 pitches. No, I don't, and it's been
God.
the downfall of many. The Angels have struggled in a number of areas, but one short start not only taxes that night's bullpen, but the games to come, and it's been really tough. And my question that was really going to be, what are they getting right, and maybe the opposite of right with the modern pitching? We just watched the Miz. He's throwing a million. Really impressive arm. There's still guys doing well. Grayson did give him length last night. He went 7 innings, but the majority of the time, I'm seeing these guys look awfully happy after their 5 innings. And for you, that would have been it's just unfathomable. I'm assuming 5 innings. That's a failure.
Well, we had a guy that just got traded, a starting pitcher, and about 3 years ago, he went to Cincinnati, tough place to pitch, pitches 4 innings, gives up 10 hits, 6 runs. So I watched the game, and then I'm going down to Houston to do the games, and I was talking to him in the locker room, and I said, what went on in Cincinnati? I mean, I kind of watched the game. He said, well, I actually kind of like my metrics and my pitch shapes. And I looked at him and said, can I give you a little Earl Weaver? He goes, Earl Weaver. I said, yeah, the Hall of Fame manager that's got his statue out of the field, in Camden Yards. I said, if you told Earl Weaver, to your point, Mark, when you blew out the bullpen by only going 4 innings, gave up 10 hits and 6 runs, and you told him that you liked your pitch shape, your metrics, he would have said, so did the hitters. And if you keep that up, you'll be down at AAA Rochester. So the game is different. A couple of years ago, they don't like me to talk to the pitchers or even be around them because the media is kind of the necessary evil in Baltimore with the PR people. But I snuck into the locker room before opening day, and Tyler Wells, who just got traded down to Tampa Bay, actually pretty good, was pitching really well for the Orioles. So that's another trade. I mean, look at Brian Baker's number. They traded him last year. I think he's got close to 30 saves. So, and just Tampa, obviously, they know what they're going to do with their pitching. But so Tyler Wells said, you throw a lot of pitches. And I said, well, the year I was 20, everybody got hurt in spring training. I thought I was going to AAA. And my first start was in Fenway Park. I throw 177 pitches, strike out 11, walk 7, hit a home run off Dave Moorhead, who had pitched a no-hitter before. And then, of course, they sent him out the next day because he hung our curveball. I almost hit it to the turnpike. And they asked our pitching coach, Harry the Capper Keene, really great left-handed pitcher for the Cardinals, who was our pitching coach. It's a lot of pitches for a 20-year-old. He said, yeah, we want to get that pitch count down into the 140s. So Tyler Wells is starting to laugh, but that's the way it was. I mean, you did what you could do. And I mean, I know because we pitched every 4th day that you can throw 125, 30, 40 pitches in your sleep if you have a good windup, if you know how to pitch. And I guess my point about the Oriole pitcher who just got traded to the Midwest is that it's about what's the hitter doing? When you come through the minor leagues, and I think in A-ball, I walked 130 and 129 innings, went to instructional leagues. So I pitched 180 innings, probably walked 190 guys the next year I'm in the big leagues. But I got to pitch. I got to learn how to get hitters out. I didn't have somebody on the iPad that I'm talking on right now saying, well, your spin rate is this, and, you need to throw your curveball, and you need to do all that. The hitters told me what I needed to throw. I used to have, and I don't know if you ever did this, Mark, when you're a young player or even when you're an older player, I used to have guys that wanted to see live pitching come down, and when I'm throwing my side or before a game, I wanted a hitter standing up there. I wanted to simulate what the game was going to be like when the game started. And meanwhile, if I'm like, we have a Rule 5 guy, or Rule 5, number 1 draft choice, $5 million player, Colton Cowser. Doesn't hit lefties, strikes out too much. Was a bat to ball guy in college. He doesn't hit left-handers. Every time Trevor Rogers would throw, or now Cade Povich, who pitched against the Angels last night, I'd be down there tracking pitches. I know they have all the machines, but there's nothing like seeing the ball out of your hand. One of the greatest articles ever was Sporting News with Tony Gwynn and Stan Musial talking about what they saw when a pitcher delivers the ball. Now, that's 3,620 hits and 8 batting titles saying we noticed the speed of the ball out of the hand. Now, I don't know if you agree with that, but tracking pitches, it's pretty important when you're trying to be a good hitter. And it's hard.
I do agree, but it cuts into your rest and recovery time. So hitting on-field batting practice is it's just not what it used to be. It's 2-3 guys. I said, where is everybody? Flaherty, when they came into town last year, the Cubs, I said, this is it, Justin Turner and one other. But no, I mean, all jokes aside, the game has changed. Guys don't practice outside as much.
I was told they need 2.5 hours of quiet time. And I'm going, well, what happens when you get to the playoffs and you actually have to talk to writers? And then I was told this year, well, I said, you don't hit outside anymore. Now, Pete Alonso said, listen, I'm going to hit outside because I want to know what the background's like. Because, I just got $155 million. I don't know how the Mets ever let him go. He's the real deal. Yeah, I mean, he's not hitting as well with runners in scoring position. He's a strikeout guy. But he plays the game every day as hard as he can possibly play, and he's my type of player. So he'll do that. But I was told, he said, well, we score more runs when we don't hit outside. And I go, so are we going to factor in who was pitching that day? Who was pitching the day? Or we don't beat left-handed starters. Well, what's the team ERA for our guys the days you don't beat left-handed starters? They don't give you the whole picture. So again, I don't know. I played with some of the greatest players: Brooks Robinson, Frank Robinson, Cal Ripken, and Eddie Murray. All Hall of Famers. Everybody took batting practice. In Wolves, and that's what they did. And I tell you now, before global warming, Baltimore used to be hotter.
Well, you probably know this, Jim. Mark is 40 years old, I believe. He's as old school as they come. That's what we love about him. Hey, you mentioned Grayson Rodriguez being one of your favorite young pitchers. We have certainly not seen the best of him in Anaheim this year, but it looked like he had a maybe what we hope is a breakthrough game on Tuesday night. What did you think of Grayson? How does he look to you? Is he starting to look like the Grayson Rodriguez of old?
Well, yeah, he was 20-8 for the Orioles. I mean, but he got a lot of runs, got over 6 runs a game. And what he needed to do when he was healthy, which he looked like he was healthy last night. I mean, last night's is a hanging slider to Alonso and a leadoff walk. That's got him in trouble. And so if you're going to walk the leadoff guy, you better strike some people out or whatever. And he did make a good hanging slider to Pete Alonso, 2-run single, and it's 2-0. And then he pitches 7 innings only, doesn't give up any more runs. He's healthy. I mean, he's smart. He's a hard worker. But he's got to figure out, okay, I need to be more consistent. So when I have a bad game, my ERA is not 6 or 7 runs a game. So because once again, my point is, if Mark's playing, right field for me, I'm going to make him think as the starting pitcher, we have a chance to win that night. And how do you do that? Stay away from big innings. And when Grayson did pitch well for the Orioles, when he was healthy, the big innings, got in the way. So again, talented guy. Hopefully he'll pitch well because, he's a good guy. I mean, he's really a good guy, and it's the last number 1 draft choice the Orioles, or at least high draft choice the Orioles have ever actually had, and that was Dan Duquette being the general manager.
How much better do you think you would have done had you had a catcher with his glove flopping all over the place back there, giving you a target, moving target?
Well, with Carlos Harris, he actually put the glove up yesterday. I mean,
I know.
And he held it. No, he held it. And I tweeted, and Ben McDonald, because we've been talking about this, he does the games that I don't do, most of them. And I said, you throw it to the glove. I mean, how do you the plate's 17 inches wide. You can make it about another 2.8 on both sides. So that's almost 23 inches, 22 inches somewhere. Because all you have to do, and we've seen it with the ABS, have the edge of the ball on there. So if I want to throw the ball out of the middle of the plate, I mean, how do I want to pitch Mark Trumbo? Not down the middle unless I want to see how far the ball went, it hurt my neck. So the point is,
Down and away.
well, okay, so here, okay, like I said, 2016, you lead the American League in home runs with 47. There's 390 hitters now in the big leagues. If 13 position players, maybe not hitters, but guys that go to the bat, and then you have 390 pitchers. How many of those 390 hitters, if they said where is the optimum ball to hit hard, how many would say low and away?
Well, you just try and pull it over the left field fence.
Well,
There are very, very few Tony Gwynns left in this game, Jim.
Well, no, but I went to dinner with Bobby Grich and Rod Carew, and we were talking about that. And Bobby said, "No, he played behind me. And, Bobby should be in the Hall of Fame. His numbers are higher than Rain. And his WAR is over 70, 71, I think, or something like that. One of my favorite teammates because of his intensity." Yeah. And he said, "Well, you used to pitch, kind of down away and then ride the ball."
We got a Grich fan.
Yeah, I saw how intense he was. How good a player he was, and we're having dinner, and I said, "Yeah, down the way," and I said, "Rodney, I said, how'd you hit down the way?" He goes, "Well, this is a guy that won 7 batting titles. I actually hit that pitch pretty well, but what's going to happen? The low and away fastball to righty or lefty, if you do it early in the game and you find out that the hitter will cover the outside corner, it's an information pitch. It makes you better. If the guy won't do it, why would I want? Right now, I throw a guy fastball low and away, outside quarter of the plate. And if he took it, I'd throw him another one. It's not an audition Broadway. I'm going to have to show him that I can sing, dance, the yodel and all that stuff. I want to see what he does, and I want to see as quickly and early in the game because I'm going to pitch deep into the game. So if he takes it, I throw him another one. If he takes it, I probably throw him another one. Because if he can hit it and he covers the outside corner, probably going to be susceptible up and in, maybe not hit the changeup very well or the breaking ball. So why wouldn't I want to find that out? See, now everybody tells you well, this guy can't hit the ball. Well, when you pitch, it's a very visual thing. Mark, I would assume some guys, you see the ball better than other guys, regardless of what the velocity is. Pitching, just where's the bat head? You got to watch the bat head. You have to go out and watch them take batting practice. You have to sit on the days you're not pitching and talk about the game and who has good bat speed and who has a slider speed bat. All these things we learned. We weren't told. Now, they say, okay, you need to do this and all that. Throw a fastball right by. They go, not a good breaking ball hitter. Speed the bat up with a breaking ball, and you wonder why you give up more runs than you want to.
Yeah, you can learn a lot by watching the game. That's why, the iPads and stuff. Soch did a really good job for us young players. He just frankly booted us out of the video room, maybe just me. But I think Borges was there too. But his point was, what are you going to learn? You just hacked at a breaking ball in the dirt. What more do you need to know? If you want to look at a strike that you fouled off, but really you don't even know which way is up. So get out of there. Bobby Abreu can go in there, and you're going to stay on the top step, and you're going to watch the game. But it was invaluable advice, a little harsh at the time, or direct, I should say. But I appreciate that. That's the type of thing that not going to get off on a tangent, but the Angels, I think that they're a candidate for, a manager with a little firmer hand. I've said it previously, and you got young players. Sometimes they need guidance and direct guidance. So the fact that they don't let you talk to pitchers as much, or maybe it's not as encouraged, is tough to hear. Right there, that clip, we can just put it on repeat and send it to them.
Yeah. I had a friend today. My wife works out at Orange Theory, and Nordstrom Bob used to be a vice president of Nordstrom. He says, "Have you ever talked to the pitcher?" I got to Baltimore in 1965, and here we are in 2026, and they have never asked me to talk to the pitchers. Now, it doesn't mean I don't talk to some pitchers. We had a general manager who went to the Cardinals. First thing he did the next spring, he said, "Hey, will you come up and talk to our minor league pitchers?" And I said, "You got Bob Gibson." He said, "No, we want to hear another." And I'm out there, and I said, "So, who are the 2 best pitchers in the National League the last 10 years?" "Oh, Schilling and Johnson." I said, No, the last 10 years, Maddox and Glavine. I said, "What did they throw, about 90, 91?" I said, how many of you guys throw 91? Everybody's hand went up. I said, but could you throw a change up in any count? Can you pitch to both sides of the plate? Can you field your position? Can you throw the low and away fastball when you need to?
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of, I don't think the game has changed. It doesn't mean that guys don't hit low and away fast, but you kind of know where they are. And, if you have a baseball field that's this big, and so, I mean, you could hit the ball anywhere out of the ballpark, but if you have a guy that's, you take the field, and if I have a left-hand hitter up and I know I'm going to throw the ball low and away, I can take that field and make it that much smaller. I can concise. I can have the same amount of defenders in a smaller field. Now, doesn't that make sense? But now, last night, your catcher, you just got him. He hits a little roller into right field.
Oh, Ballesteros.
Mo Baller.
Yeah, well, whatever. But no, you're right.
Yeah, I mean, the hardest thing as a hitter is got Greinke, Dan Herron, all these guys stealing strike one down and away. Very frustrating. You're behind in the count now already, and I plan to hit it. And I was, you go up there with I'm going to be aggressive, and it's just not a pitch you can do anything with. So the brain says, nope. And then 0-1 again and again, against these good guys. So I appreciate that. I think Mike's got a final question for you.
Yeah, I have to ask you this, Jim. Speaking of great pitchers, you and Tom Seaver were two of the greatest of your generation and my generation. I grew up in Connecticut in the 60s and 70s. Tom Seaver was my favorite player, but you guys did not face each other in the 69 World Series. You did start opposite of each other in the 1970 All-Star Game in Cincinnati. But as far as I can tell, a research of mine this morning, you squared off only once in the regular season on April 23rd, 1984, when you were in your last season with the Orioles and Seaver was at the end of his career with the Chicago White Sox. What, if anything, do you remember from that game in Comiskey Park? And did you guys develop a relationship through all those All-Star games, or whether it was a mutual admiration or respect over the years?
Well, Tom Seaver, he struck out 8,000 people and won 311 games. My first All-Star game, Willie Mays led off, Rose hit second, Bench hit Aaron hit fourth. I think Dick Allen had just gotten the Hall of Fame. He hit seventh or something like that. It was the only headache I ever had when I looked at that lineup. But I pitched against Tom and Dave McNally, who won 20 games for us 4 times. He would eventually be pitching when they would lose in extra innings. Pete Rose was playing third base, and I dropped a bunt down. And I took the bunt, Pete threw me out. And I come back, and Dave McNally says, you got a little bit of power. Why didn't you try to hit a home run off the Tom Seaver? And I said, what, are you crazy? All you have to do is, let's see, April, I don't remember the date, but in 1970, he struck out 19.
Yeah.
Not only did he strike out 19, he struck out the last 10 batters of the game. So, Mark, for a point, you think he threw more than 95 pitches that day? He could. He was terrific. And to your point, of course, we were both on the baseball assistant team board, so I got to see him. They have used to have a big dinner up in January. We're both in the Hall of Fame. I have a great picture of us up at the Little League World Series, on Friday night after we both retired. And the only cover I ever made of Sports Illustrated, I'm on one side and Tom is on the other, which is,
awesome.
Yeah, I get people send it to me and I'm going, since Tom passed away, it's going to be a tough autograph. If only I autograph it. I probably should come up with a Tom Seaver autograph and make it, less valuable or whatever. But, one of the great pitchers of all time and terrific guy and, tragically, Alzheimer's or whatever. And I loved his wine.
Yeah.
He had a great vineyard up in Napa Valley, and I think GTS named after his dad. So, again, if you're a Mets fan, I wish, to your point, I wish I had actually pitched against him in the 69 World Series.
Oh, that would have been awesome.
He gave up a couple of runs. I pitched against Gary Gentry in Game 3, and we got shut out. So, but he was Tom terrific. That's kind of what a great nickname.
If memory serves, did a young right-hander named Nolan Ryan finish that Gentry game?
It could have.
Yeah.
All I know is he was one of our best breaking ball hitters. And Nolan, and people forget that, he's a relief pitcher for the Mets then. He
Yeah.
threw him a curveball, and Paul's rear end was in our dugout. But he was also throwing 101, Yeah, I mean, that was still 101. It's not the jacked up, radar now. We'd have
There we go.
I saw him. Chris was the last out. He threw him a 2-2 changeup for the final out of the no-hitter in Anaheim. And he pitched pellet games. And I'm going, how do you see the ball? I mean, he's thrown, legitimate 100, 101. And, I mean, he was known. But he was a little bit wild. He walked me on a 3-2 curveball throwing 100 miles per hour. I'm not sure that was a very prudent fit, to be quite honest.
All right.
Did you ever bunt against him?
Pardon me?
Did you ever bunt against Nolan? Or
are you out of your mind? That. Yeah, guys that try to bunt, he would throw the ball back in. He'd walk about halfway, maybe even a little bit closer to home plate, get the ball and rub it up like this, and just go, try that again. No. I just figured if he wants to walk me 3-2, I'll go down there. At least he didn't hit me. In fact, I was the DH was what came in 73.
Yeah.
I don't think I was ever hit by a pitch, from 65 to 72.
Wow.
Yeah, so I was fortunate. And I didn't hit that many guys either. I only hit 38 guys, 4,000 innings.
All right. Hey, we are going to end the show with that. Jim Palmer, Hall of Famer, Baltimore Orioles TV analyst. We really appreciate your time and input. Mark Trumbo, thanks as always. Hey, thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time on Halo Territory.
If you made it this far, you'll love this next video. Check it out right here. And make sure you subscribe to Halo Territory for more Angels coverage like this multiple times a week.